My name is Sarah, and I need to tell you something that's been eating me alive for 3 years. I married what I thought was the perfect man, only to discover he was systematically destroying my daughter's childhood. The signal I missed at 3 p.m. that Tuesday changed everything. This is my story, and it might save another child's life. It started in March 2022. I was a single mom grinding through double shifts. Morning at the insurance office, evenings at Tony's diner. My 8-year-old daughter Emma was spending too many hours at after-school care. I was drowning in guilt and exhaustion. The economic stress was crushing us. Honestly, I was desperately lonely. Then I met David at Corner Coffee downtown. Tall, steady job at the bank. When Emma spilled her hot chocolate on his shoes, he just laughed and asked if she wanted another one. He seemed like the answer to every prayer I'd whispered into my pillow at night. But here's the first signal I completely missed. Pay attention to this. David's courtship was textbook perfect. Too perfect. He'd show up with Emma's favorite cookies, help her with math homework. Never missed a single school event. Within 2 months, he was practically living with us. Emma seemed happy, calling him almost dad. I felt like I'd finally gotten the fairy tale. We got married in September 2022. Small ceremony, just us 3 and a few friends. David moved his things into our cramped apartment. Suddenly everything felt complete. I thought I'd given Emma the stable father figure she'd never had. That first dinner, as a family, should have been perfect. But when I walked in from my late shift at the diner, I found Emma sitting at the kitchen table, tears streaming down her face, staring at an untouched plate of cold spaghetti. The TV was blaring in the living room where David sat, completely unbothered. "What happened, baby?" I asked, kneeling beside her chair. David called out without looking away from the screen. "She's being difficult about dinner. Kids need to learn respect." Emma looked at me with these hollow, frightened eyes. She whispered, "I'm not hungry, Mom. My tummy hurts." There it was, the first crack in the perfect picture. But I missed it completely. Over the next few months, I started noticing changes in Emma without realizing what they meant. She stopped singing in the bathtub. Her bright, infectious laugh became rare, then disappeared entirely. She'd wake up screaming from nightmares. But when I'd ask about them, she'd just say she couldn't remember. The school counselor, Mrs. Patterson, called in November. Emma's grades were slipping. She'd started eating lunch alone. "Has there been any major changes at home?" she asked gently. I told her about the marriage, how happy we all were, how David was such a wonderful stepfather. Mrs. Patterson made a note and said she'd keep monitoring the situation. Another signal I explained away, but here's what really makes my blood boil now. David was a master manipulator. Around me, he was still the perfect husband and stepfather. He'd ruffle Emma's hair, ask about her day, volunteer for bedtime stories. But I started catching these micro-expressions on Emma's face whenever he touched her. This tiny flinch, like she was bracing for impact. Christmas 2022 was magical, or so I thought. David bought Emma an expensive tablet, took us to see the lights downtown, even helped her write a letter to Santa. We looked like the perfect blended family in our holiday photos. What I didn't know was that this was the beginning of his systematic campaign. Right after New Year's, the rules started. David explained that Emma needed more structure, more discipline. She couldn't have friends over anymore because our apartment was too small. She couldn't join the after-school art program because it was too expensive. She had to finish everything on her plate before leaving the table, even if it took hours. "She's getting soft, Sarah," he'd tell me. Her real father obviously didn't teach her any discipline. I'm making her stronger. Every reasonable explanation for making my daughter's world smaller and smaller. By February, Emma had become a shell of herself. She'd come home from school and go straight to her room. No more chattering about her day. No more silly jokes at dinner. She'd sit at that kitchen table, mechanically eating whatever David put in front of her, never making a sound. But I was working so much, trying to keep up with our increased expenses. I'd leave for the diner at 4 p.m. and wouldn't get home until after 10 p.m. David was always there when I got back, usually helping Emma with homework or reading her a bedtime story. The perfect stepfather, right? Then came that Tuesday in February 2023. I'd called in sick with a migraine, something I never did. Around 3 p.m., I heard Emma's key in the door. She was home from school. Then I heard David's voice. It was nothing like the gentle tone he used around me. It was cold, sharp, dripping with contempt. You think you can just waltz in here making noise? This is my house now, you little brat. I crept to the top of the stairs. What I saw will haunt me forever. David had Emma backed against the wall, his face inches from hers, pointing his finger right at her nose. My 8-year-old daughter was trembling, tears rolling down her cheeks, but she wasn't making a sound. She'd learned not to make a sound. "Please, David," she whispered, so quietly I could barely hear her. "I'll be good. I promise I'll be quiet. Your mother's not here to protect you," he hissed. "And if you ever tell her about our little talks, she'll have to choose between us. Who do you think she'll pick? Her husband? Or some other man's mistake?" Some other man's mistake. He called my beautiful daughter a mistake. That's when something primal exploded in my chest. I flew down those stairs like a woman possessed. "Get away from her right now!" I screamed. David spun around, his face cycling through shock, then anger, then that manipulative charm he was so good at. But for just a split second, I saw his real face, the face my daughter had been seeing for months. "Sarah, honey, you're not feeling well," he said, his voice suddenly syrupy. "Emma was just being loud. I was teaching her some house rules. Right, Emma?" But I could see the terror in my daughter's eyes. This wasn't new. This was routine. "How long?" I asked Emma, kneeling down to her level. "How long has this been happening?" She looked between David and me, clearly terrified to speak. "Since Christmas, Mum," she finally whispered. "When you go to work, he makes me stand in the corner. For hours, he says, if I tell you, you'll send me away because you love him more." Christmas. 2 months of psychological torture while I was serving coffee and eggs to strangers, thinking my daughter was safe at home with her loving stepfather. When I confronted David alone that night, he didn't even try to deny it. He looked me dead in the eyes and said, "She needed discipline, Sarah. You were raising a weak, spoiled brat. I was making her strong. She's 8 years old," I said, my voice shaking with rage. "She's not even your real daughter," he shot back. "Why should I pretend to care about some other man's mistake?" There it was, the mask completely off. I packed our bags that night. We stayed at the Sunrise Motel on Highway 9 for 2 weeks while I figured out our next move. Emma barely spoke during those first few days. She'd just sit on the scratchy bedspread, coloring in her notebook, jumping every time someone walked past our door. It took months of therapy for Emma to start opening up about those 5 months of hell. Dr. Martinez used trauma-focused therapy specifically designed for children who've experienced abuse. The approach treats both the child and the non-abusive parent together. Slowly, in that safe space, Emma began to tell her story. David had used 3 main strategies that Dr. Martinez helped me identify. Isolation, cutting Emma off from friends and activities. Conditional love, being sweet when I was around, cruel when I wasn't. authority manipulation, using discipline as cover for psychological control. This wasn't a man losing his temper. This was psychological warfare against a child. Emma is 11 now, and she's doing so much better. We moved to a new town where she's made real friends. She's in gymnastics and absolutely loves it. She laughs again, really laughs, from her belly. But sometimes, when someone raises their voice in the grocery store, I still see her freeze up for just a second. But here's what keeps me up at night. How many other children are suffering right now while their parents work late, completely unaware that the person they trust is slowly breaking them down? I'm sharing this story because you need to know the warning signs I missed. Watch for sudden personality changes after introducing a new partner, your child becoming withdrawn or fearful, new sleep problems or declining grades. Trust your instincts if something feels wrong. Document everything. Talk to teachers or counselors. Contact the National Child Abuse Hotline at 1-800-4A-CHILD. Check childwelfare.gov for local resources. And if you're a step-parent watching this, please understand the enormous responsibility you have. You're becoming part of a child's life story. You can either show them that love heals or teach them that home isn't safe. Emma and I are more than okay now. We're stronger. Our bond is unbreakable. She knows with absolute certainty that I will always choose her safety over my own happiness, but I'll carry the weight of those 5 months for the rest of my life. If you're watching this and something feels familiar, please don't wait like I did. Trust your child. Trust your instincts. No relationship is worth your child's emotional safety. Your instincts are your child's shield. Don't ignore them like I did. So tell me in the comments, have you ever had that gut feeling that something wasn't right? What warning signs do you think parents miss most often? Share your story because this conversation needs to keep happening until every child feels safe at home.